for joining us here in Pastor's Corner. Thank God for another day. Thank God for finishing a week and going into a new week. I don't know about you, but I can't do it without Him. I need the Lord. I need His direction. I need Him to speak to me. I need to be able to speak back to Him, or speak first and then Him speak back, or just many times me speaking. I do love when the Lord gives me a word. It is so encouraging. And with that, we're going to go into, again, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13. We're going to go into a different part of it. I think we could probably just stay in this area and never finish, never exhaust it. But Matthew chapter 13, and we are going to start with the 10th verse. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? Why are you speaking in parables? And he answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whosoever has, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever has not, from him shall be taken away even that he has. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled. Now he's going to quote scripture. It's scripture to us now, but back then this wasn't, of course, written, but he's going to quote scripture. The prophecy of Esaias, which saith, By hearing you shall hear, and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see, and shall not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their eyes are dull of hearing, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I shall heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them. So the disciples are asking Jesus, why do you speak in parables? And he's saying the mysteries are not for the religious. I'm going to say that, the religious ones. He says, the mysteries are for you, talking to the disciples. And he's saying they see, but they have eyes, but they don't see. They have ears, but they cannot hear. He starts out with, this is worded very poetically, but to him that has, he's going to have more. The ones that have are going to have more and abundance, like it's just going to exponentially keep going. But to those that don't have, even what they do have is going to be taken away from them. So in other words, he's given two sides of the people receiving. And there's a group that even what they do have is going to be removed from them. And then another group that what they do have is just going to keep growing and growing and growing. And he's speaking about hearing him and understanding him and getting the message delivered and receiving that message. And as Jesus spoke in parables and referred to as mysteries, they could not understand him. The religious people couldn't understand him. Their religion blurred their views, dulled their hearing, so that they were unable to receive. And we can be one or the other. We could be the one that receives. We have eyes and we see, we have ears and we hear and we understand. Or we can be blinded by our religiosity. And so many people, it's not that they want God, they want religion. And they mistake religion as God. And some people view religion as God, and it's not God. It's just religion. And what religion gives somebody is something that you can physically see. You spiritually don't see it, but physically you could see it. I have no problem with great big cathedrals, the beautiful buildings that can be built. I'm all for it. I would have no problem with finances to build a great, beautiful building that on the outside and inside moves the eye. But at the same time, not to be something that we worship. That it's not what we worship, it is not our purpose, and we look at the building. And I'm just using a building because it could be a lot of things. People can worship a religion. I've been doing this deep study of the life of Jacob, and all of you will remember this, but Jacob was at his father-in-law's land and was working for him, and he handled the sheep and the goats and the cattle, and he prospered. Jacob prospered. God blessed him. And it got difficult between him and Laban, his father-in-law's sons, and with Laban there was a divide with them, and Jacob's like, I got to get out of here, I got to leave. He was married to his daughters, and he's like, we got to leave, and the daughters are like, we're with you. Our father has given us up, and we don't have anything in inheritance from him anyways. And so they packed up and they left. They didn't tell Laban that they were leaving. Somebody else told him 3 days later, and he chased them down. Took him 7 days to catch them, and he caught them. And the Lord spoke to Laban before he got there and told him, neither speak good or bad to Jacob. Just keep it even kill. Don't say good, don't say bad. Just make peace and go your separate ways. He basically told Laban, who he didn't serve the same God as Jacob did, but Jacob's God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he spoke to Laban. But Laban tells him, you left without saying bye. You didn't allow me to give you a party, a celebration, a feast, bring other people to say goodbye, and those things. He says, but why did you have to steal my gods? And Jacob's like, I didn't steal your gods. And he said, if somebody did, you can kill them. So Laban went through everybody's stuff, and he couldn't find his gods that were stolen. But where they were was Jacob's love of his life. Rachel was sitting on him. She had him underneath her on a camel. So she was sitting on the gods and hiding them. So he didn't find them. He didn't know that his daughter had stolen his gods. And they had them. She had them there. Which tells us a couple things here. One, that Laban worshiped other gods. Two, that Rachel still had a draw towards those gods, that she wanted to take those gods with her, that they brought her comfort or something. There was a reason she took them, and she even made sure she was able to hold on to them. But we need to take note here. There was before the word was given to Moses on Mount Sinai and the directions of what you do and don't do. And of course we know we shall have no other gods. So they're kind of learning this I say kind of learning, they were in the process of getting this information of the one God and serving the one God and bowing down only to the one true God. The creator of the universe at that time would be Jehovah God. And that they had this separation there. And the separation of other gods. And we could go into depth on what happened at the children of Israel, the golden calf and all that. But what happened is there was a blindness. There was a blindness that happens. When we have other gods, there's a blindness. When we have other gods, our hearing is dulled. So the religious people could not hear Jesus. They couldn't hear him. They couldn't understand him. The disciples could get it. And as Jesus told them there, he says, the great prophets, the great men of God would love to have the experience that you're having. They would desire to have this. And to be able to walk with him, to see him, to be taught by him. And here we are in our day and time, and we're able to reflect back, and just like I did right now, mentioning what happened with Laban and Jacob and Rachel and the other gods, and we have all this information before us. But at the same time, we have the information of the disciples. We have the information of the religious at that time. And then here we are, and we can make the same mistake. We can make the same mistakes that they made back then. But I'm going to say it this way. I think it's worse for us to make the same mistake. And here's why I'm going to say it's worse for us. Because we have more information. We have more information for us to go to. Right here you could see the three different Bibles that we have here. We have a Spanish Bible, we have a Hebrew Bible, we have an English Bible, and some people say, well, why? Well, the Hebrew's the original Spanish for looking up Spanish version, and of course our regular English version right here. And then right here with my tablet, of course I read off my tablet, and I have access to all of the versions, every version I can go to with my tablet. And it is so convenient that I can go to this and pull up versions of the Bible, and I can read it. And let's just say that there's a word in there that I don't know what it means. That I can go and do research and find out what it means. I'll give you one that is in there in the Gospels. Phylacteries. Some of you would know exactly what that is. Phylacteries. Some of you say, I don't know what a phylactery is. Well, what a phylactery is, and if you've seen photos, is they take these leather straps and they wrap them around their hands and their arms. And when they pray, they put them around themselves. And what that represents is that they're taking the word and they're wrapping themselves in it with the leather straps. But to some people, that would be foreign. It would be something not understandable. The other one that common people won't know, a jot or a tittle. They won't know what that means, a jot or a tittle. So a jot or a tittle in the Hebrew, the letters are very artistic. And they have little movements on them. Some of them even like crowns and different things. But when it comes to the place of it being written, what you would know as a scroll or the Torah, and if a jot or a tittle is wrong, they burn the whole thing. The whole thing gets burned. It has to be exactly right, perfect. And this goes all the way back to Moses, that it got passed down for generation, thousands of years, to be eventually put in this one right here, which would be the Hebrew. So then the Hebrew would be put on these piece of papers that you can't see, of course, but you know how it works. And then you go to the Hebrew, which would be the direct, and then the English one right here, that would be an interpretation of this. But a jot or a tittle shall not pass. Let heaven and earth pass away, but his word will not pass away. But you could come across something and not understand it. It could go over your head. But you have the ability to do research. You have the ability to ask questions. I don't understand this. I want to help you with this. If you're hearing something from a speaker speaking, teaching, preaching, and something comes across that you don't understand, write it down. If you have a pen and a paper, write it down, or put it in your phone or your device or something and keep it moving. What do I mean keep it moving? Stay in it. Stay in it. Don't check out. Stay in it. And maybe it'll be understood in the message later, or if it's not, you can do research on your own, or you can ask somebody. Can you help me? What is phylacteries? I don't know what that means. I don't understand that. And somebody can explain it to you. What is that? It's growing in knowledge. And what does that do for you? It helps you to open your eyes. It helps me to open my eyes and me to open my ears. And a lot of people, I hear this, I don't need to know any of this stuff. Well, when we say that, we limit ourselves. More understanding, more information, understanding context, understanding culture can go a long way on us understanding. But the religious couldn't understand Jesus. They couldn't see it, they couldn't hear it, and they missed it. They missed it. And again, coming today, how much more should we not miss it? We should get it, because we have more access to information. But we can make the same mistake. We can make the same mistake that Rachel made and took these gods and put them underneath ourselves. And what is that? Well, you say, well, I don't have any statues that I worship. I don't have any images that I worship and I bow down to, but we could be worshiping religion. We can be worshiping an organization. We can be worshiping a denomination. We can be worshiping an affiliation. We could be worshiping a man, or we could be worshiping a woman. We can be worshiping our possessions. We could be worshiping our 401k. I know you say, no, I wouldn't do that. But where is our heart? Where is our devotion? See, anybody can get blinded by religiosity. Anybody can. We can get distracted. And I watch people do this all the time. This is how it's supposed to be done. What way? The way I know how it's done. People do it. So for one person, burying their hands in, or their face in their hands is the way it's done. For another person, it's putting their hands as high as they can go and expressing outwardly as much as possible. Another person may go prostrate. Another person may go to their knees. Another person, this is me, will pace. And I watch people do this, that they get hung up on their way. And what do I mean hung up? If anyone doesn't do it the way they do it, then that person is wrong. And then that wrong actually grows into a God. So it goes away from worshiping God to actually worshiping the actions instead of worshiping God. And I watch this happen, and this may sound confusing, but people will worship the movement of God. In other words, God moves, his anointing falls, and it touches lives, and they're not worshiping God, they're worshiping the movement. We'll say, isn't that God? God moves, people move because he moves, and now they're worshiping that. And this is one thing that I have attempted to do for decades. It's been one of the most challenging things for me to do. It's to relate to people. Don't worship the movement. Don't worship what you feel. Don't worship what you see. Worship just because he is God. Regardless of what you see, regardless of what you feel, regardless of where you're at. With us here at this brick block building that's a rectangle with this ceiling and this altar. Don't worship this. Worship the living God. If you feel horrible today, worship him. If you feel indifferent today, worship him. If you feel excited today, worship him. Worship him because he's God. Just because he's God, worship him. See, David was a man after God's own heart, which is different than being a man after being used by God. That may sound confusing because it sounds good to say, I want to be used by God. Yes, we all want to be used by God. But don't worship being used by God. Worship God. Seek after him. Seek after the depth of him. I've been trying to explain this to a few people, but one time a bishop, the Lord spoke through him to my wife and said, you are my intimate. To my wife, the Lord said this. And that's a very in-depth statement. And I know a lot of people couldn't understand this or don't understand. But what the Lord was saying is she knows how to go deep in with him. To be able to be intimate with the Lord. And what that is not worshiping the movement, not worshiping a building, not worshiping an affiliation, not worshiping an organization, not worshiping a name. And I'm not saying the name of the Lord. I'm talking like some name of some whatever that trademark, that logo, that identity is, and worshiping it. She was just seeking after intimacy with the Lord. What King David did, having that relationship with the Lord. I think back to Moses going mouth to mouth with the Lord, which is another teaching, beautiful teaching there. Mouth to mouth with the Lord. Wow, I would love to go on to that one. But not worshiping all these other things and basically having other gods. Because when we get these things in our way, we get blinded, we get dull of hearing, the heart goes cold, it calluses over, and instead of it growing, as those that have more and in abundance, we end up, what we do have, losing it. One time the Lord told me this, that he likened him speaking through me and giving me word. He likened it to the burning bush with Moses. He likened to that. And what he was likening it to is that the bush didn't burn out. And he was saying how he delivers me word and it doesn't burn out. In other words, that I don't just get a word and then that's it. And I just beat the same thing down over and over, and I'm living off what I heard 10 years ago, what I heard 20 years ago, what I heard 30 years ago. It's every single day that the fire is burning, not because of me, but because of him. Thank him for it. I thank him for it. I count it a blessing to be able to have him speak to me. But he likened it unto Moses and the burning bush. And he told me this. He said, people will not understand that burn that you have. They won't understand it. They won't get it. They won't realize what is that. Well, what it is it goes back to what he's saying here. That when you have this coming, it'll just keep going. And in abundance, it'll keep growing and growing and growing exponentially. Instead of being the other side where even what they do have, they're not going to even have that. Why? Because in a sense, they knew Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, he is one. They knew that backwards and forwards, which means there will be no other God. We will just worship the true and only God. But yet, what can happen is taking that and turning it into what we worship. What do you mean? That doesn't sound like that makes sense. So taking what we do know and making a God out of what we know instead of just sticking with God. God gives us something and we turn it in, instead of it just being a memory, a landmark, something to mark history, we take it, bring it forward, and then worship that. Like some people will take a cross, and they'll take a cross and they'll put it, and then they worship the cross, which in some people's eyes is like, what's the big deal? Well, is worshiping a cross worshiping God? No. Worshiping a cross isn't worshiping God. And we got to agree on this. It's not the same cross anyways. We have never seen the cross that he was crucified on. But people make a cross, and you see them all over the place, and then they worship the cross. And they find some type of relief with it. Why? Because it's something you could see. It's something you can identify. I'll call it lazy. This is being lazy. Instead of being zealous. Instead of saying, I'm going to be like David. I'm going to be a man. I'm going to be a woman after God's own heart. I want to connect with God. Me and God connect. And that says so much about you. It says so much about me. How do we connect with God? Not how other people connect. How do we do it? How do you do it? How do I do it? And not look at somebody else's connection and say, oh, they got it all wrong. You do it my way. No. And I get it. I love to watch my wife pray, but she prays the way she prays. I pray the way I pray. Again, I'll go back to me. The majority of the time, I like to pace. I like to pace. I like to pace when I pray. And some people may not understand that. But I'll quickly interpret that for you, in case you don't understand. And you could use it if you want. You don't have to. But see, what pacing does is there's these little hairs inside of our inner ear. Inside of our inner ear, there's these hairs. And what pacing does is it literally gives you balance. Pacing gives you balance physically. So when I'm praying, it's doing two things for me. It's giving me spiritual balance, but it's also giving me physical balance. It's giving me a center spiritually, but it's giving me a physical center. I'm letting you chew on that because you may never heard that. But I'm going to give you another example of what that is. When a baby is crying and you take the infant, the baby, and you go like this with the baby, or you go in a rocker and you rock like this, it's the exact same thing as pacing. This to an infant is the same as an adult pacing. So the pacing helps to give us center and balance. And I'm going to go just a little bit further with this. Sometimes you may feel like a little like you're off-centered physically, or a little off like your eyes or something. When it gets horrible, it's called vertigo. But I don't want to go into that. But you just may feel off. That's where pacing comes in to help to center us, to balance us. And praying is the same thing. For me, that's why I say I like to pace. It helps to give me my feet on the ground, literally, and it helps me to give my feet on the ground spiritually. And that's how I do it. I'm just giving my explanation for the reason I do what I do. Now, somebody else may literally rock and do that. And that's fine. Pray like that. 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 Pray like this. Pray like this. Come on. Is it all right? Yes, it's all right. We just got to get out of the way. And when we allow that to disturb us, it blinds us and it dulls our hearing, because we are no longer worshiping God. We're worshiping the actions. I pace, but I don't worship pacing. Pacing is my form of adding to my worship. I need to stop. Thank you for joining us this, I'll say, beautiful Sunday morning, even though it's warm. Thank God for His mercy, His grace, His love. As I told you last week, we do now have our own app, and you can find it on your Google store. You can find it on your Apple store. New Creation Church, NCC, AZ, NCC, New Creation Church. Put that in there. You will find our app. Download that app, and you will have access to so much information that I won't have to go over it if you look at your app. And in that app, there's a place to give. But if you don't want to download the app and you just want to give, then you can text 77977, New Creation AZ, New Creation AZ 77977. Just send that like a text. Go to 77977, text, put in just straight across, no spaces, New Creation AZ, and boom, it'll send you a link. You hit the link, opens up, you fill in the information, bam, you can give. We will be back here at 12 o'clock. We'll have the air conditioners cranked down as far as the temperature going down, and as comfortable as possible. But we don't worship the AC. I hope not. But I thank God, because air conditioning helps us to worship, I think. In other words, it makes it more comfortable. But guess what? What if there was no AC? I hope we'd still worship the Lord. Air conditioning. We'd still worship the Lord. I give credit to people that live like that with no air conditioning. They still came to church and worshiped the Lord in 110, 15 degrees. We will be back here again, like I said, 12 o'clock, 1363 South Vineyard in Mesa, 85210. Hope to see you. If not, and if you're going to be here, either way, have a blessed Sunday.